Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's workshop. My name is Michelle Jones, and it is a pleasure to be with you today and again to welcome you. I also am so excited to say hello to Diana Fleming. She's the PhD nutritionist at Full Plate Living. So hi, Diana.
Hi, Michelle. Hello to all of you. And I am very excited to talk about this subject because I am a recovered sugar addict. So it's passion for me.
Yes, and I'm excited about it as well because I also love sugar. So today's workshop is when sugar is a problem, and I am definitely waiting to see what Diana has in store for us. I do want to make a couple before she gets started. I know that most of you have discovered the chat function already. Go ahead and say hi, tell us where you're from. Also, use the chat throughout the presentation. If you have any questions during the workshop, go ahead and put them in the chat. We put those aside, set them aside, and then at the end of the workshop, want to address them for you so that we can answer your questions. Additionally, because this is technology and not everything is perfect, I want to make a couple announcements about what to do if you lose sound or if you lose video. The easiest thing to do is to refresh your screen or refresh your browser. That usually just resets the workshop for you and it fixes most of the problems. We also work on the internet on our end. So if something freezes up on our end, if our sound quits working, we may have to leave the workshop as well and come back in. So if either Diana and I disappear, that's what's happening. We'll be right back as soon as we can. So don't go away until we say this isn't going to work. We've never had that happen before, so I don't think that's going to be a problem today, but just wanted to let you know. Also, Demio, which is the streaming program that we use for this, works best in the Chrome browser. So if you have Chrome on your computer, you're not using it right now, try logging in using Chrome. That will probably reduce the amount of technical difficulties that you may have. So having said all that, Diana, I think we're ready to get started.
Great. So when sugar is a problem. So I've had people tell me so many times over the years, sugar is poison, or I've read it. And I just want to let all of you know that we have thousands of taste buds that are designed to register the taste of sweet and send it to the brain. So it's not that we shouldn't be eating things that are sweet tasting. The issue is what kind. So that's what we want to delve into. And basically there are two kinds of sugars. Natural sugars, and I'm calling these natural sugars because these are sugars that naturally are present in foods, especially fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds, and milk. Added sugars are the other kind of sugars, and these are the processed, concentrated sugars and syrups that are added to food during the processing, during preparation, or at the table. So the natural sugars and the added sugars. And it's the natural sugars that are not the problem. Please don't forget this. They are not the problem. That's because sugar that naturally is present in foods is diluted by water and fiber, so it's not as concentrated as the processed sugars. And it comes packaged with all the good stuff we need to be healthy: vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytochemicals, and sometimes even protein. So natural sugars are not the problem. In fact, foods that naturally contain sugar are some of the healthiest foods on the planet, right? Fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, nuts, seeds. So I've had people say, oh, I'm eating too much sugar, I should stop eating bananas. Probably not. Bananas you should keep eating, but maybe it's the cookies and the brownies, right? So foods that naturally contain sugar are not the problem. So the added sugars are the problem. And why are they the problem? Because they are what we call empty calories. I know you've all heard this term before. What does empty calories mean? Here's the classic example of an empty calorie food: white sugar. 1 teaspoon has 16 calories, which is 4.2 grams, but it has no starch, no fiber, no protein, no fat, almost no vitamins, almost no minerals, no antioxidants, no phytochemicals. So basically, processed white sugar is like a big zero when it comes to nutrition, but it has calories. So that's what an empty calorie food is, and different foods are empty calorie foods to different degrees. Now, here's some scientists who actually went back and dug out data on the added sugar content in the US, and they went back to 1820, and they carried it up to 2005. And you can see that as time went on, the amount of added sugars that we Americans have been eating has been increasing, almost in a linear fashion. And today, this is using 2012 data, the average American adult gets 19 teaspoons a day of added sugar. That's an average. So that means that there are people who get way more than that and people who get less than that. And the average added sugar intake for 14 to 18-year-olds, young people, is 1 teaspoon more. This is 20 teaspoons a day. We're talking about teaspoons of sugar a day. So the thing that's significant about the amount in the young people is it's about the same as the adults, just a teaspoon more, and young people have smaller bodies. So they're taking in the same amount of sugar, and that's going to have too much of that added sugar is going to have more of a negative impact, which we're going to talk about shortly. So what's the problem with too much added sugar? Now remember, as I go through this list quickly, we're talking about too much added sugar. We're not talking about natural sugar, just the processed added sugar. And I'm going to tell you what too much is after I talk about these things. But first of all, we need to know that when we have too much added sugar, this increases our chances of a lot of negative things, like tooth decay and eating too many calories, which of course leads to overweight and obesity. And both overweight and obesity can increase the risk of cancer, not just one kind, but about 13 different kinds. When you eat too much added sugar, you're likely to be taking in a diet that has nutrient deficiencies, and specifically fiber, calcium, vitamin A, iron, zinc, and iodine. When we have too much added sugar, that increases our risk of prediabetes and diabetes, and it is associated with increased risk of high blood pressure, and that, of course, increases our risk of stroke. Too much added sugar increases blood sugar levels. We all know that, which increases our risk of prediabetes and diabetes. It increases our LDL, the bad cholesterol, and decreases our HDL, the good cholesterol. And this, of course, is associated with increased risk of heart disease and dying from heart disease. When we have too much added sugar, it increases the fat levels in our blood, the triglycerides. That's associated with increased risk of heart disease and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. This is on the rise in our country. This is a fatty liver that is not associated with drinking too much alcohol, but eating too much calories, too many calories from the wrong types of foods, and added sugars or processed sugars are one of those foods. Too much added sugar increases uric acid levels, and uric acid levels increase the risk of gout and type 2 diabetes. And then, of course, sugar is very pro-inflammatory. We're talking about processed sugars here, not the natural sugars. That increases the risk of inflammation in the body. All right, here's another thing that too much added sugar does. It weakens our immune system. This is a beautiful study that was done, and I'm just going to talk about it a little bit. This was a study looking at our neutrophils. Neutrophils are the most abundant white blood cell in our body. They are important in killing bacteria, viruses, and fungi, and they're actually like our first line of defense. They're like the first responders in a disaster. And the way that the neutrophils kill these pathogens that we don't want is they operate by a process called phagocytosis. PHGO is a Greek prefix meaning to eat. And so basically what they do is they engulf the bacteria or the viruses, and then they take it inside themselves. They have all these powerful chemicals, and they basically destroy the pathogen. And that's what you see in this little picture. The white blobs are the neutrophils, and the orange sticks are anthrax bacteria. So you see the neutrophil just surrounding the anthrax bacteria, and then it's going to destroy it. So here's what this study showed. They looked at the phagocytic capacity, or the bacteria destroying capacity of the neutrophils in response to added sugars. So if you have no added sugars, one of those neutrophils can destroy about 14 bacteria. But now you eat something with 6 teaspoons of sugar. It might be, a fruit flavored yogurt. And now one neutrophil can only destroy 10 bacteria. So it's lost some of its capacity to destroy bacteria. If you have 12 teaspoons of added sugar, now its bacteria destroying capacity is decreased even more, down to 5 bacteria. 18 teaspoons of sugar, and now one neutrophil can only destroy 2 bacteria. And then you have 24 teaspoons of sugar. That would be like a good slice of double chocolate cake, right? At least 24 teaspoons of sugar. One neutrophil can only destroy 1 bacteria. And basically what's going on here is the neutrophils are going after the sugar instead of the bacteria. And here's what's so sober about this. This effect on the neutrophils lasted up to 5 hours. 5 hours. So let's say you have some sugar thing at lunch and your neutrophils, or their capacity is decreased for 5 hours, and 5 hours later it's time to eat dinner. And so, you have soda and maybe you have a dessert at dinner. So now you have a bunch more sugar, and now you're keeping those neutrophils functioning very poorly. And what the study revealed was that the effect was similar if it was glucose, if it was fructose, if it was honey, if it was orange juice. Just remember, fruit juices are concentrated sources of sugar. They've removed the fiber and most of the nutrients. So when you drink orange juice, it's kind of like drinking sugar water with a bit of vitamin C. Here's the other interesting thing about this study. This did not happen to the neutrophils with starch. So if you have a bowl of oatmeal for breakfast, that does not weaken your immune system. But if you have a soda and a donut, that will. So here's another thing that too much added sugar does. It produces addiction-like effects in our brain. And there's actually pictures of this where the pleasure and reward centers of the brain light up similar to when somebody is on cocaine. It's not the exact same thing, but similar. And look, I'm a recovered sugar addict. I know this. Added sugar increases cravings. It results in loss of self-control. I mean, I have done so much binging. I was hiding it because I was so embarrassed. And it does lead to bingings. And then when you try to quit all the added sugar, you experience withdrawal symptoms. And I remember this. But I'm in recovery now, so I'm really grateful. So you get irritable, you get headaches, you feel tired. So these are the addiction-like effects that too much added sugar creates. Now, here's the $60,000 question. This is what we need to know. How much added sugar is too much? Here's what the American Heart Association shared with us. They gave added sugar recommendations way back in 2009. And the reason they did this is because they were seeing in their research that there was a relationship between heart disease and too much added sugar. That was surprising to the American Heart Association. You don't usually think of too much added sugar as related to heart disease, but that's what they found. So here's what you want to remember, everyone. If you're an adult woman, you want no more than 6 teaspoons of added sugar a day. Adult woman, no more than 6 teaspoons of added sugar a day. If you're a man, and men are bigger, you want no more than 9 teaspoons of added sugar a day. No more than 9 teaspoons of added sugar a day. What about children? They came out with recommendations for children. And obviously, children are smaller than women, generally speaking. And so their recommendations for children are less than 6 teaspoons of sugar, of added sugar. That's added sugar a day. Now, remember what the average American 14 to 18-year-old is getting for added sugar? I'll help you. 20 teaspoons a day. So, they're getting more than 3 times the amount of added sugar that a 14-year and 18-year-old should get in a day. Here's the sad part about this story. More than 90% of Americans exceed these recommendations. More than 90%. So, you know, basically we are a sugar addicted nation, and I'm talking about added sugar here. So I want you to take a moment and put in the chat where you think most of this added sugar is coming from. So take a moment and write your answer in the chat. Where do you think most of this added sugar is coming from?
Soda, processed foods, cookies, soda, packaged foods, processed snacks, bread. See, high fructose corn syrup. That's good. Lots of soda and dessert, sweets, pies, ice cream, cake.
Okay, they got it. Yes, good answers. So here's the data. Here's the pie chart. The majority of it comes from caloric drinks. They did not include milk in this, and they did not include fruit juice, 100% fruit juice, because there is some vitamin C in the 100% fruit juice. But this is all the sodas, all the coffees, all the fruit drinks. I mean, all of these with added sugar. And then the second category, which all of you guessed, are the processed desserts and snack foods, cookies, brownies, candies, you name it. These are the two major sources of added sugar in the American diet. So I want to take a moment to talk about liquid calories, and then I'm going to talk about the processed foods. So basically, it's not a good idea to drink your calories. You want to eat your calories. So here's a couple facts from research. If you drink calories at a meal, you know, like you go to a restaurant, what do people do? You know, some people drink water, but, you know, a lot of times people get a soda or, you know, some form of liquid calories. Research shows this results in you eating more food at that meal and feeling less satisfied. And the second thing we know from research is it does not cause you to eat less food at subsequent meals. That's called compensation. So just because you drink liquid calories at a meal, you might drink 300, 400, 500 calories at a meal. It doesn't mean that you're going to eat 300, 400, 500 calories less at the next meal. We don't compensate for those liquid calories, and that's part of the reason for that, or a lot of the reason for that, is how they're processed in the brain, how they are digested. We know from research that a higher intake of sugar-free sweetened beverages is associated with an increased risk of a lot of negative health outcomes: weight gain, obesity, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and depression. If you or you know anybody who struggles with depression, one of the best things they can do, and the first step, is eliminate liquid calories. I want to go through these 4 slides really quickly. There's way more of these on the internet. If you want to see how many teaspoons of sugar are in different liquid calorie beverages, you can just go to sugarstacks.com. But here we have, you know, a 12-ounce soda, 10 teaspoons of sugar. A 20-ounce soda, 16 teaspoons. A liter soda, 27 teaspoons of added sugar. Remember, an adult woman, 6 teaspoons a day, adult man, 9. Here we have some vitamin water. Seems like a good thing, you know, we're going to drink some vitamins. But 1 8-ounce glass of the vitamin water gives you 3 teaspoons of added sugar, and a 20-ounce bottle gives you 8 teaspoons. How about orange juice? It's good. It does have vitamin C, absolutely no fiber. 1 glass of orange juice will give you 6 teaspoons of sugar. Anybody who is diabetic and has a low blood sugar episode, what do they drink to get their blood sugar up quickly? Orange juice, apple juice, grape juice. It's like drinking sugar water with a little vitamin C. And then we have, in a 16-ounce bottle of orange juice, 12 teaspoons of sugar. Chocolate milk does provide calcium. Kids love it. But 1 cup of chocolate milk, 7 teaspoons of added sugar, and 2 cups, 14, obviously double. And then I had to throw in 1 fancy 16-ounce mocha frappuccino, a Starbucks favorite, 11.75 or almost 12 teaspoons of added sugar. Now, let's talk about added sugar in processed food. There are three things you need to know in order to figure out how much sugar is in your cookies or in your brownie. Um, you need to know the names of added sugars, how to find them on food labels, and then how to figure out how many teaspoons of sugar are in a serving of that processed food. So the next three slides in alphabetical order are different names of processed sugars. I've gotten most of them. I probably haven't gotten all of them. I'm just going to flip through these. I'm not going to read them. If you really want to know the names, you will have access to these slides when this the webinar is over. But I want to mention agave nectar. It's first on the list because it begins with A. And I have it bolded. And I know agave nectar is very popular, but I just want to make a plug here for why I don't even recommend it. You know, sometimes I use a little processed sugar or honey or maple syrup, but I don't recommend using agave nectar because it's 70+% fructose. And too much fructose contributes to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So, you know, if I was going to recommend a bit of a processed sweetener, I would say, you know, white sugar or honey or maple syrup if you want to use a bit, but not agave nectar, because that fructose does not go into the bloodstream to provide energy. It goes to the liver. And if our body does not need the fructose to be converted to glucose to go into the bloodstream, the liver stores it as fat. So when we're getting a lot of this concentrated amount of fructose, we can increase fatty liver. So I wouldn't recommend that as a processed sugar. Here are the other names and syrups. Okay, so now the list is there. If you want it, you can have access to it. The second thing we need to know is, where do you find the names of added sugars when you look at a food label? And here's where you find it. The added sugars are listed in the ingredient list. And I would skip all foods that have added sugars as the first ingredient, because the first ingredient is what's most in a food. And you can see this is a little bit of a food label, and the first ingredient says sugar. So whatever it is, don't buy it. Look for something else. Notice it says vegetarian here. I just want to say that not everything that is in a health food store is that healthy. So you need to be discriminating and, you know, read your labels. Here's the third thing you need to know: how to figure out how many teaspoons of added sugar are in a product that you are thinking of eating. So this is something else you want to memorize: a number. 4 grams of sugar equals 1 teaspoon. 4 grams of sugar equals 1 teaspoon. So now we're going to look at 2 food labels. These are the old labels that are on their way out, but it's probably going to be several more years before you never see one of these again. So you're going to be seeing these now. And here's what you do. You go to the nutrition facts panel and you look at the serving size at the top. And you can see when you look at this, the serving size for this product is 6 ounces. And then the next thing you look at is how many servings per container. 1. That tells you that all the numbers below, especially the sugar, since that's what we're looking at now, apply to this whole container, or 1 serving. I actually know what this is. It's a 6-ounce serving of yogurt. So the next thing you do is you look down and you look for the grams of sugar, and you can see they're circled on the slide. You have 25 grams of sugar in this container of yogurt. Now, you know, we don't deal with a metric system in this country. Science does, but, you know, the average person doesn't. So that doesn't mean anything to us. So we want to translate the 25 grams into teaspoons. That means something to us. So what would we do? We just learned that 4 grams equals 1 teaspoon. So we're going to divide the 25 grams by 4, and that's going to give us 6 teaspoons. So there are 6 teaspoons of sugar in this small container of yogurt. Now, we don't really know how much is added sugar and how much is natural sugar. If there are pieces of strawberry in there, or some real blueberries in there, or apples, now you're going to get some natural sugar, but still most of it's going to be the added sugar. So this is what the new labels show. You're seeing these labels more and more, and pretty soon these are going to be the only kind of labels you see. And notice what they do is they make a distinction under total grams of sugar. They tell you how much of that total is added sugar. So in this case, there's 12 grams of sugar, but 10 grams of that are added sugar. So most of the grams of that of sugar in this product, and I actually don't know what it is, are added sugar. 10 divided by 4, you can see they've got it right there on the slide, is 2.5. So there are 2.5 teaspoons of added sugar. So if you ate this, you would be under, 6 teaspoons of added sugar for the day, but that's only one thing that you're eating. So anyway, that's how you deal with added sugar in processed foods. Let me take a moment to talk about hidden sugars. Not all sugars are in sweet stuff. I mean, sweet stuff is obvious, right? But there are added sugars hidden in many products that are not sweet. Marinara sauce is a classic example. In 1/2 cup of jarred marinara sauce or canned tomato sauce or pasta sauce, you can get 3 teaspoons of sugar in 1/2 cup, and you're probably going to eat a cup, right? So you want to look at how many grams of added sugar are in tomato sauces. Barbecue sauce is a killer. It is loaded with added sugar. 2 tablespoons can have 4 teaspoons of added sugar. And how many people eat 2 tablespoons of barbecue sauce when they eat it, right? They probably have 4 times that. Fruit flavored yogurts, we've already talked about. Cereal bars, they'll have oats in them, but a lot of added sugar. Canned peaches, even in light syrup, they can have 5 teaspoons of added sugar. It's best to have your canned fruit in water or the natural juices. And then, of course, applesauce can be sweetened and have a lot of added sugar. All right, so I'm going to finish this presentation by briefly talking about sugar substitutes, and then I'm going to give you 7 tips on how to beat a sugar addiction if you feel like you are a sugar addict. Let's talk about sugar substitutes really quickly. This is kind of important. What are sugar substitutes? These are sweeteners that are used in place of regular caloric sugar or any other kind of caloric sweetener. So what is the benefit for these sugar substitutes? They tend to be low calories or no calories. That's why people like to use them. So I'm going to briefly discuss artificial sweeteners briefly. I mean, we could do a whole talk on different artificial sweeteners, but we're going to just hit the highlights. Artificial sweeteners, sugar alcohols, monk fruit, and stevia. So first, artificial sweeteners. We don't recommend these because they're synthetic sugar substitutes. They're man-made sugar substitutes. Even if they start with a natural molecule like Splenda starts out with glucose, but then it adds some chemical structures to it that make it completely unnatural. So we don't recommend the synthetic sweeteners because they have negative effects on the body. And I listed the big ones here: sucralose, which is Splenda, or Zerocal, those are the commercial names; aspartame, which is known as NutraSweet or Equal; saccharin, which is Sweet and Low; Sweet Twin, NectaSweet, these are all commercial names for saccharin; and asulfame potassium, which is commercially known as Sweet One or Sunnet. So these, when we eat these, because they're unnatural molecules, we don't digest them. We don't break them down. They're not absorbed. They go into our colon. And this is what recent research has shown. This is why they are one of the reasons they're so detrimental. They actually increase our bad gut bacteria. So they have a negative impact on our gut microbiome. Research shows they actually increase sugar cravings, not decrease them. They're actually associated with increased risk of weight gain and diabetes. And every single one of these artificial sweeteners have safety issues. Let's talk about sugar alcohols briefly. This is a category of non-toxic sweet carbohydrates that are naturally found in small amounts of fruits and vegetables. So they are naturally found in small amounts in food. So these are not man-made substances. They can be produced industrially from other sugars. You can make sugar alcohols. And sugar alcohols are neither a sugar or an alcohol. They're a hybrid molecule. So there is no alcohol in sugar alcohols. I know some people have been concerned about that. You don't have to worry about that. So here's what happens when we take in sugar alcohols. And remember, we take small amounts in fruits and vegetables. They are partially digested and absorbed, partially. So basically, sugar alcohols provide half the calories as regular sugar. So instead of 4 calories per gram, there's about 2 calories per gram. And when they get, the ones that are not digested go into our colon, and they actually feed our good gut bacteria. So they don't have a negative impact on our gut microbiome. They have very little impact on blood sugars, little to none in terms of elevating blood sugars. They actually protect against dental cavities, every single one of them. That's why you find xylitol, which is sugar alcohol, used in, you know, toothpaste and gums, different things like that. And here's the one drawback. If you take an excessive amount of sugar alcohols, it can cause gas, bloating, and sometimes lead to mild forms of diarrhea. And here's how you would take too much of it. You buy some cookies. It says sugar-free, right? So you think, wow, sugar-free. So I can eat a lot of these cookies. This is what, you know, how my mind as a before I was a recovered sugar addict, that's what I would always think about, right? And so if you eat, you know, a whole sleeve of sugar-free cookies that have sugar alcohol, you're going to be getting a lot of sugar alcohol, and that can cause the gas, the bloating, and maybe some diarrhea. So, you know, if you eat something that has sugar alcohol, don't overdo it. All right, and so I want to mention 2 sugar alcohols really quickly. These are xylitol has been around for a long time. It's very common in sugar-free chewing gums, candies, toothpaste, diabetic-friendly foods. As I mentioned, it has very small impact on blood sugars. The problem is, don't eat a lot all at once. And you need to know, if you have cats or dogs, that xylitol can be fatal to your pets. So if you're going to use xylitol in bakery goods, or, you know, have it around the house, make sure that it's, you know, your dog or cat does not get a hold of it. They cannot metabolize it the way we can. And listen, you know, when you're eating sugar-free things that have sugar-free other forms of sweeteners, the idea is to eat a moderate amount, to control it, right? Not to think, wow, now I can binge on it. That's not the purpose of having things that have sugar substitutes. The second one I want to mention is erythritol. This is a newer kid on the block as far as sugar alcohols. And it's amazing. It's rapidly absorbed in our small intestine and excreted almost completely in the urine. And while it's in the body, it actually has some antioxidant activities. That's really amazing. So we absorb almost all of it, 90% of it, and we excrete it in the same form. And while it's going through our body, while it's in the body, it has antioxidant activities. The 10% that we don't absorb goes into our colon and is eliminated unchanged. So that means it does not have any negative impact on our gut microbiome. So erythritol is zero impact on the gut bacteria and the blood sugars. That's wonderful. So this is a sugar substitute that we actually recommend you use limited amounts if you want to sweeten something. And let's talk about stevia really quickly. Stevia, of course, monk fruit, thank you. I missed that. We'll talk about monk fruit first. This is taken from a small green Chinese melon. And the Chinese have been using monk fruit extract for hundreds of years. The FDA has now put it on the GRAS list. That means generally recognized as safe. Monk fruit extract is partially absorbed. It does not appear to raise blood sugars or liver enzymes in a negative way, which is what we don't want that. And here's the great thing about monk fruit. Whenever you get a monk fruit sweetener, and I do use these, the first ingredient is erythritol. So The majority of commercial monk fruit sweeteners are mostly erythritol with a tiny bit of monk fruit extract. And then I just talked about all the benefits of erythritol. Stevia, we know, is derived from a small bush from South American countries. And its sweet taste is derived from these certain chemicals in the leaves of the plant. They're called steviol glycosides. And in their crude form, that is not what you get when you buy stevia sweeteners. They are highly processed. These glycosides are highly refined and purified. And two different ones are added to stevia sweeteners. Stevia side, you'll see it in the ingredient list, or Reb A, you'll see that in the ingredient list. So stevia is a 0-calorie sweetener. It is not digested in the upper GI tract in the small intestine, but it is broken down in the colon by gut bacteria to a certain molecule called steviol. This molecule is transported to the liver and then increased in the urine. So here's the only caveat to stevia. There's actually an acceptable daily intake that has been determined. I'm not putting it here because, you know, when you eat it in foods, you have no way of knowing how many milligrams you're getting. But here's what science shows. The normal use of stevia sweeteners is safe. Here's what is not safe, an abnormal use. Let me give you an example. You like stevia sweeteners, so you know you drink tea and coffee and you add stevia to 3 or 4 different beverages throughout the day. And then you add stevia to your cereal. And then you bake with stevia and you add it to cookies. And then you sweeten stevia on fruit that you have for dessert. That is an abnormal use of stevia because you're using stevia in place of sugar and you're using it a lot. What research shows is that an excessive use of stevia can have a mutagenic effect. That means an effect on DNA that could be negative. So, you know, the thing to ask yourself is, how much stevia am I using? Am I just using a gob of this, you know, throughout the day? Then you're probably getting too much and that may not be safe. All right, so those are the comments on the sugar substitutes. Here's what you can do. 7 strategies if you feel you are a sugar addict and you want to break your sugar addiction. So number 1, if you drink liquid calories, greatly decrease or eliminate those. You can try to eliminate them cold turkey, but very few people can do that. The best method is to step down. So if you're drinking a liter of soda a day, you know, go to half a liter for a week and then go to half that amount and then just step down 1 week at a time. And you want to drink lots of water in place of all the beverages that had calories that you were drinking. So that's the first thing. Greatly decrease or eliminate liquid calories. Second, you want to eat more fiber-rich whole plant foods. And is this your turn to talk about this one, Michelle? Talk to us about it.
That's fine. Yeah, eating a lot of fiber foods is so good for you in so many different ways. But when it comes to sugar and a sugar addiction, it really helps to decrease those sugar cravings. You just won't have them as much. Make sure that you're eating full meals and not just eating throughout the day. But if you eat full meals, 2, 3 full meals in the day, you will not have as many sugar cravings as you used to before. So that's eating fruits, vegetables, legumes like beans, and then cooked whole grains. And that's
Right.
easy to help as well. Yeah.
Right. Can you turn your volume up just a hair? You're a teeny bit soft. And listen, there's a little phrase there. It's one of my favorite mottos. These foods, the fiber foods, provide satisfaction without addiction. When you eat these foods, when you're finished, you're going to be satisfied. You're not going to be craving. I remember when I would binge on sugar, as soon as I was done, I was figuring out when I could binge again because it was setting up cravings. All right. The third strategy is every time you crave something sweet, and you will, especially when you're trying to break a sugar addiction, eat fruit. It doesn't matter what time of day it is, you know, in between meals, even at night, eat fruit. Fresh fruit, unsweetened frozen fruit, you can mash it up or blend it up a bit, eat fruit. All right, strategy number 4, Michelle?
So number 4 is actually creating a plan of how you're going to deal with your sugar addiction. And I've had to do this. I know, Diana, you've had to do this as well.
Yes.
And the first thing to do is to identify your problem foods. And they're different for everybody. Maybe it's ice cream. Maybe you can have cookies in the house and you really could care less, but if there's ice cream, you're going to eat all of it. Or maybe it's cookies for you. Maybe it's cake. Maybe it's just having packaged snacks in the house. So whatever those foods are that are a problem, and hey, it could be all of them. I've gone through stages in my life where there were sugar things in the house that I didn't even like. I thought they were gross, but when I wanted sugar, I just had to eat them. So identify what those foods are and remove them from the areas where you spend most of your day. So remove them from your pantry in the house, remove them from your environment at work, whether that's in your personal cubicle or just where you spend a lot of time, and remove them from your desk. That's a big one too. Or your car. Create safe havens. And talk to your family about how they can help you. I know that we think people should just read our minds and just understand when we say, well, I'm trying to lose weight or I'm trying to be healthier. That doesn't translate the same to other family members because they don't have the same struggles we do. So really spell it out for them and say, look, I'm trying to be healthier and ice cream is really a problem for me. So I would love for us to create a day when we go out and have ice cream and not keep it in the house. Or say, you know, these cookies are really a problem for me and I know they're not a problem for you guys, so can you hide them somewhere in the house where I don't know where they're at? And then the temptation is removed from you, but your family can still enjoy those things that they want to enjoy. I understand families not always on the same bandwagon. So find ways to work with them, but do let them know what you're trying to accomplish and how they can help you. Because I'm sure they want to help, but most of the time they don't know how.
Exactly. Excellent. Okay. Strategy number 5 is if you're not addicted to sweets, then enjoy a sweet treat once or twice a week, not once or twice a day. I mean, you know, think about it. And that includes liquid, you know, sugar. So if you're drinking liquid sugar and you're eating desserts or sweets, you know, throughout the day, you want to take it back, step back to once or twice a week. And that's exactly what I do. I have a sweet treat once a week is actually when I do that. And here's a great tip. Eat it at the end of a fiber-rich meal. This is so important for me. If I eat the sweet first on the empty stomach, it turns on those cravings. But if I eat all the fiber food first, then I eat the sweet, the cravings they're not turned on. The fiber food takes care of the problem. And just keep in mind recommended teaspoons of sugar. 6 for an adult woman. This is added sugar. We're not talking about fruit, sugar and fruit. And 9 for men. All right. Michelle, 6.
Avoid artificial sweeteners. And I know Diana's listed those already, and she also gave some suggestions for sugar substitutes that are.
Why don't you? It's the next one. Why don't you talk about it?
So, you know, instead, choose real fruit first of all, and then any other dried fruit is going to have a high concentration of sugar. However, it's still going to retain some of the nutrients. So it's going to be better than refined sugar or artificial sweeteners. So dates, raisins, other dried fruit, date sugar, bananas, sweet potatoes are incredibly high in sugar, especially if you bake them. Carrots, xylitol, erythritol, monk fruit sweetener, and then stevia. All of those are healthier substitutes for sugar.
Good. Thank you. So those are the strategies. Here are the references for this presentation. And Michelle, tell us what Full Plate has to offer.
So Full Plate, we actually, in your membership, all of you have free access to all 3 of our programs. And I encourage you to go through them. Start with the Full Plate weight loss program. It says weight loss, but it actually helps with a lot of other health factors as well. So go ahead and start. When you go through the full plate weight loss program, it teaches you how to add more fiber foods to what you are already eating. And it's the basis for all of our programs. It really gives you information about which fiber foods help you the most. And again, how to add them to every meal, whether you're eating at home, going out to eat, when you're on the road, it's just the best place to start. Secondly is our Yummy course, and Yummy is like a little cooking lab. So we get to share recipes with you and you try them. You get 3 recipes per week and you get to actually take the principles that you learned in the weight loss program, but actually apply them in the kitchen. Even if you don't like cooking, give it a try, because you may just realize that you do like it. And if you already love cooking, this is great, because it's going to show you how to take recipes you're already cooking and that your family already loves, and give you principles to help make those healthier so that you can reap good benefits from eating them. We also understand that some of us have different needs, especially when it comes to sugar. If you are diabetic, you need to watch sugars in a totally different way than somebody who's not. This applies to somebody that's diagnosed with type 1 or type 2, or if you're pre-diabetic. This is a fabulous course to go through. It takes complicated principles and makes them easy to understand. And then it tells you which foods to be mindful of and which ones you can eat more of, and how to pay attention to that. So those are the 3 courses. Again, start with the full plate weight loss program and you will not regret it. I think you're going to learn a lot just going through that.
It really does a good job of covering the basics.
Yes, definitely.
So here we are with, I love this picture. This is the way we want to enjoy our sweets. You can even put the raspberries on your fingers if you want.
Yes, those are delicious. Diana, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you that was a lot of information. It was long, but it was a lot of good information. So thank you for taking the time to go through that.
My pleasure.
And at this time, I think we would like to go through the questions. There were quite a few in so far. It looks like we have 13 of them. So I did see a lot of the questions at the end about how much the membership is. The membership is free. You already have access to it if you have signed up at fullplateliving.org. All you have to do is go and sign in to fullplateliving.org, just sign into your account, and you have access to a lot of resources, and one of them is going to be the program, the full plate weight loss program, the diabetes program, or Yummy. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Diana, can we eat as much fruit as we want?
So in a sense you can, because I'm going to talk about both sides. In a sense you can, because the fruit has lots of water and fiber and is self-limiting, right? I mean, you can drink a liter of apple juice without batting an eyelash, but try to eat 6 apples, right? So in a sense, you know, because of all the water and fiber in fruits, you know, you're going to stop eventually. However, here's the caveat. If you're somebody who has blood sugar issues, if you're pre-diabetic, if you're diabetic, if the doctor has told you you have metabolic syndrome, it would be very wise for you to limit the amount of fresh fruit that you eat at a meal. So let's say a big man who's working, you know, doing physical labor outside, you know, eats a big meal and he eats, you know, 5 pieces of fruit. He's going to burn it all off and it's not going to be, you know, probably not going to do anything. But if you are having blood sugar issues, if you're insulin resistant, it would be better if you had 1 piece of fruit or 2 at the most.
Per meal, correct?
Per meal, right. And, you know, depending on how many meals a day and how you eat, you might only want to have 2 pieces of fruit in a day if you have diabetes, right? So it depends. Everybody's individual and unique. It depends on your certain situation. So no, you can't eat too much fruit, but yes, you can, given specific parameters.
Excellent. What about blending frozen fruit into a smoothie? Is that
So that's
refined sugar
great.
or is that natural sugar?
Right. So frozen unsweetened fruit is natural sugar. So I make smoothies, and I like to add some vegetables to them, some greens. The, the one caveat we all would recommend here at Full Plate is don't use fruit juice in your smoothie as the base, and don't use sugar sweetened milks as the base, because now you're going to get, added sugars. If you use sweetened soy milk or oat milk or, vanilla, anything that's got added sugar, keep your base as water or an unsweetened milk, and then use your fresh fruit. And the blending does not wipe out the fiber. It simply grinds it up into small pieces.
Where does,
So yeah,
I'm
Go ahead.
rushing us through because I know we have about 10 minutes and I want to be mindful of everybody's time. So I apologize to you, Diana, and to our viewers. I'm just trying to get through all the rest of the questions.
Cut me off as much as you want, because I can talk so much.
Excellent. Where does honey fit in the natural versus processed paradigm?
It's a processed sweetener.
Excellent.
It's an added sugar, especially if you buy it in a jar and it's processed. A lot of times, honeys are not pure honeys in the grocery store. They've actually had other added sugars added to them. So yeah, count it in the added sugar category.
Okay. What about the impact of diet sodas? This kind of falls under artificial sweeteners, does it not?
Yeah. So actually, when I was talking about that, artificial sweeteners associated with this and that, since most people get their artificial sweeteners in liquid form as diet drinks, high intake of artificially sweetened beverages leads to all of those things that I mentioned. I believe that's what the slide said, but there's so much information coming at you so fast. I can see where you might have missed it. Look, if you have one diet soda a week, probably not a problem, right? But if you have, 4 diet sodas a day and you do that every day, that has multiplied negative impacts on the body, on brain, on gut microbiome. Remember, the artificial sweeteners increase the bad gut bacteria. They have a negative impact on the gut microbiome. So they're not the answer.
Yes. What about wine? Where does wine, this was in context to where we were talking about the fruit and fruit juices and
Right.
sodas and all. What about wine?
So wine is a caloric beverage. And so any amount of alcohol, this is what research shows, any amount of alcohol increases risk of cancer. So there are some physicians, some health professionals who are not recommending it at all, but a lot of health professionals will say just stick to moderate alcohol consumption. So that's 1 drink a day within 24 hours for an adult woman, 2 drinks a day within 24 hours for an adult man. A drink is 5 ounces of wine, 1 12-ounce beer, or 1.5 ounces of liquor.
Okay. So it's basically, it's a sugar, consider it as a sugar sweetened beverage.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Here's a good question. This one, not that the other ones were bad, but this one's interesting. This comes from Becky and she says, isn't fructose the natural sugar found in fruit? And this came right after we were talking about agave, of course.
Yes, it is. But here's the difference between agave nectar and fruit. Most fruit is like half glucose, half fructose. So, and then that's diluted with water, because fruits are like 90% water, plus or minus, depending on the fruit, right? So now you've got the glucose and fructose diluted with water, and there's always some fiber present, so they're diluted with fiber. So when you eat fruit, you get a much lower percentage of fructose than 70% that you get in agave nectar. Remember, agave nectar is processed, highly processed. They're taking it from a plant, so you're getting concentrated amounts of fructose.
Excellent. So this was a quick mention. Somebody mentioned, Lori mentioned that Splenda now has a stevia-based option. Which is interesting because stevia, again, was one of the ones that has a safety limit to it, correct?
Yeah. So I don't know what this product, I haven't seen it, but if it has Splenda in it and stevia, I would not use it.
Yeah.
I would not use anything with artificial sweeteners.
Excellent. Thank you, Diana. What about, again, we're talking about stevia. What about growing your own stevia plant?
Sure, you can grow your own stevia plant. You can chew the leaves up and you can, use it if you want. The research on it is not with the crude extracts from the leaf. It's from the refined, highly refined stevia glycosides, the stevioside and the Reb A. So the safety of the processed stevia, it does not apply to crude stevia extracts. That is not what they have done the research on. So I don't know what the safety is there. But if you want to take some stevia leaves and blend them up and use them in something, I'm sure I'm sure that would be okay. You're not really going to get concentrated sweetness. So it's probably going to be self-limiting. So you're not going to have the danger of having too much.
And it may even have some fiber in it.
Yes. Well, if you're blending up a leaf, it does have some fiber in it.
Exactly. Any information on pure cane sweetener?
On what?
Pure cane.
Oh, pure cane sweetener is just pure cane sugar.
Sugar. Yes.
Yeah. Just
So
sugar.
Sugar. Added sugar, refined sugar, which is, again, what we're trying to reduce.
Right.
So this is, again, talking about sugar substitutes. I don't taste sweetness in most of these, mostly bitter taste. Is it an acquired taste?
Yeah, so they all do. They have an aftertaste.
Mm-hmm.
And, our dear Amy, she can taste stevia if there's a drop in.
Yes.
She cannot stand the aftertaste. So look, use these things according to your preference, right?
Right.
Look, I think a little bit of processed sugar is better than the use of artificial sweeteners. That's my personal opinion. And I bake with erythritol and monk fruit sweeteners, and I figure out the least amount that I can use with no aftertaste. Mm-hmm. And, they change the texture of recipes. So if you want to experiment, you just start experimenting with them. And I use them and can get a slightly sweet taste with no aftertaste. But you don't, and for me, it's not a one-to-one substitution. In other words, if something calls for a half cup of sugar, I do not put a half a cup of monk fruit sweetener in there. It's going to have too strong an aftertaste, and sometimes it's even too sweet.
Yeah.
So you just have to work with it.
I'm
trying to go fast.
And some of them do, again, it's stevia. Stevia makes things bitter. So if you're looking for things that don't taste bitter, do not go for stevia things. And sugar alcohols like erythritol or xylitol makes it taste a little cold. It's a different sensation. It leaves a different sensation in your mouth. So see which one it is that bothers you the most and try other things that don't have that in it.
And the sugar alcohols have a very drying effect. So you need to work with moisture in your baked goods.
Yes.
Don't put your moisturizer in your baked goods.
This is just moisture, not moisturizer. This is a quick question for both of us, Diana. How many meals a day do you both eat? So how many meals do you eat per day?
2.
And I eat between 2 to 3, depending. But they're very large meals. These are not tiny little meals because I'm making sure.
And I see, does white flour products act like sugar in the blood? Yes. White bread can spike blood sugars the same as white sugar. I saw it, so I just jumped in there.
Excellent, perfect. What if you don't like most fruits?
Well, you said most. So I would find the 1 or 2 you like and start there.
I agree. And what you're going to find is that the more you remove processed sweets from your diet, the more your taste buds change. So for me anyway, a good test to know if I'm eating too much sugar is when I no longer like natural things like fruits and vegetables. That usually means that it's done something to my taste buds and I need to go back to eating more of them. How do we access the information from today? If you are in our Facebook group in the private Full Plate Living membership community, then we will be posting it as soon as we have something that works. And then it's usually also emailed in the weekly newsletter. So make sure that you open your newsletter this Sunday. It should be in there. Okay, does all types of protein help with sugar processing in the body, or beans specifically?
It's beans specifically, because they're about a third fiber, I'm going to just generalize here, a third starch, a third fiber, a third protein. Meat is, like almost all concentrated protein with no fiber. And what most people don't realize is that protein, especially concentrated protein, actually spikes insulin levels. People don't think about that. They just think about sugar spiking blood sugar, which spikes insulin, but concentrated protein, excessive amounts of protein spike insulin levels, not a good thing. Beans are the food that has this amazing effect on lowering blood sugar because of fiber, starch, and protein together.
Excellent, thank you. We have just a few more questions. It's 3 o'clock. I know some of you probably need to go, and if that's the case, we completely understand. We're gonna zip through the last few questions just to make sure we get everybody's. Diana, what about honey from the man who raises the bees? In other words, natural honey, is that still a processed sugar?
Yeah, so raw honey, I actually buy raw honey, and it's still a concentrated sweet. But if it's raw, it's minimally processed, but it's a concentrated sweet. And I cannot hardly tolerate like a teaspoon of raw honey, and that's all I want, right? It's very concentrated sweet. But I get your point about the raw.
Yes.
So yes, count it as an added sweetener.
Yes. So we do have a couple questions that have to do with repeating information. We've already said, again, you will have access to this presentation. You're more than welcome to fast forward and listen to the specific questions. Diana, I find that many people avoid all dairy because they perceive it as having too much sugar. Can you please mention the difference between lactose, natural versus added sugar? And this is specific to dairy.
Right. So there is a sugar that is unique to cow's milk, and that is what you said, lactose.
Yeah.
Right. So it is a natural sugar, actually, because it's naturally found. And, do you want to call cow's milk a processed food? Well, the cow makes it and we take it, right? So, I don't look at it that way. But yes, you can get too much sugar if you eat too much dairy. And, I recommend if you use dairy, you minimize the amount you use and stick to the low-fat versions. So low-fat dairy does not remove the sugar, but it does remove the saturated fat. And that raises LDL cholesterol. So lactose is natural sugar found in cow's milk. It's not an added sugar.
But in the plant milks, most of them have added sugars to them to give it that sweet taste. So earlier when you were talking about choosing sugar-free milks or milks without sugar, you were specifically talking about choosing unsweetened almond milk, unsweetened soy milk, unsweetened oat milk. Yes.
Yes. I wasn't talking about using cow's milk. So if you wanted to use cow's milk in your smoothie, I would recommend skim milk or no more than 1% cow's milk.
Excellent. Last question. This is from Stephanie. She says, I use coconut water in smoothies. It says 10 grams sugar in an 8-ounce serving. If it isn't added sugars, is that okay?
Yeah, well, so what is it? I mean, I don't drink coconut.
Coconut water is the water.
What do they sweeten it with?
I think it's just found in the water. It's just the sweetener in the water itself, in the coconut water.
Right. You know what? That's the sugar naturally found in coconut.
Right.
Coconut does have sugar in it.
Yes.
But so when you drink coconut water, now you're going to get, the concentrated sugar from the coconut like you would get when you make orange juice from
Yes.
oranges. You're getting but it's not very much. Did you say it's 10 grams? So every time you drink coconut water, think about this. You're getting 2.5 teaspoons of sugar. That is a processed sugar because they've taken the coconut and processed it to take the water out. Now you're getting the sugar that's naturally found in the coconut flesh. How many coconut waters do you drink in a day, right? If you have 3, you've exceeded your added sugar limit for the day.
Yeah, it's just like with all the fruit juices. Even though there's good in them, there's vitamins, and that's fantastic. I know coconut water has potassium, which is great for you. It's still a high concentration of sugar in liquid. Instead of, it doesn't have the fiber, it's missing some of the other things. Thank you so much, Diana, for answering the questions.
Thank you for your help, Michelle.
If you eat a lot of fruit, can this add to sugar addictions?
I've never really help me out with this, Michelle. I've never had a person tell me they had a problem with too much fruit. In fact, when I was coming off my sugar addiction, it was fruit that helped me succeed because the fruit has the fiber and it has all the nutrients in that processed sugars don't have.
Right. I think the problem is people who continue eating all the sweets. They don't change their sweets levels, and they eat fruit on top of that together, and they think that the fruit is going to save them from the others. So in other words, I think that you probably have to at some point consciously make the choice to reduce and cut out artificial sweeteners in order to really reap the benefits from sweet. But
artificial, but added sweeteners, you have to minimize your added sugar intake.
Definitely. Again, Diana, thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure. It's always fun to have you here and to see the questions that come up. So I hope that you have a lovely rest of your day.
Bye.